Thank you to everyone for joining us here today. I'm Heather Schechter, the Director of Marketing and Business Development for Sunrise Management and Consulting, and we are proud to manage at Hudson Park. It's so exciting to be part of this beautiful apartment community and having all of you here to support us today. When I first saw this project, it was a shell of a building with brick walls and dirt floors. It was hard to imagine it becoming what you see now. But after speaking to the Capital District Real Estate Investment Team, it was clear that they had a vision and were dedicated to making it happen. They showed me the ambitious plans from 3T Architects, and they introduced the dedicated BBL employees who would bring this vision to life. Seeing the hard work of all involved coming together to create this project and seeing people's faces as they have seen this apartment community for the first time has been very rewarding. We can't wait for you to see some apartments as soon as this ribbon cutting ceremony is over. At our marketing table, we'll have a list of apartments that are available for you to tour today. While you're there, please enter our raffle for some wine and snacks. And we're also delighted to have Sam Pagano here, who will offer samples of beer. Hey, Sam. Sam is the head brewer at C.H. Evans Brewing at the Albany Pump Station and has a lot of experience with historic brews. Now I'm delighted to introduce our first speaker, Mayor Sheehan. Thank you so much for all you do to enhance the city of Albany, and thank you for taking the time to speak today. We are glad to have your support. Please come up and join us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And my office gave me talking points, and I'm not going to say any of them, so other people can cover them. But what I want to share with you is an experience I had my very first year as mayor. I was invited to a mayor's design seminar, workshop really, in San Antonio, Texas. And my staff really urged me to go. I said, I'm a new mayor, I have a lot of things to do. I can't possibly take 4 days out of the office to go to San Antonio and talk about cities and design. But I was convinced to go. I was told it was a great opportunity, and so I went. And I spent the week with mayors from across the country, from places like Mobile, Alabama, Plano, Texas, some cities down in Florida, and we looked at each of our cities. We went on to Google Maps and Google Earth, and we were really focusing on this area of the city and what we could do and some of the planning techniques that we could implement as we developed Park South and as we thought about this incredible asset that we have called Lincoln Park. And this building was the envy of every other mayor. And they looked at the building and they asked me about the building, and I said, oh, it's this long oil building and I don't know what we can do with it. And we were, really grappling with it. And they said, that is the building of the future. People want to live and work in cool spaces like that. Whatever you do, don't let anyone tear down that building. And so to see this reinvestment, to see this vision, I cannot wait to go to my next U.S. Conference of Mayors meeting and show off to all of those fellow mayors who were in that class what you have done with this building. I want to thank everyone who was involved, the people who believed in it, who invested their money, the people who really had the vision, the architects, everyone who came together. It is just so exciting to see this building come to fruition, and I am really excited for what this is going to do for the future, not just of this little beautiful, precious corner of the city, but really for the reemergence and the burgeoning residential investment that we're seeing across the city of Albany. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much. To make these historic buildings come back to life, the New York State Historic Tax Program helps developers bring new life into old buildings while restoring their beauty. Would Dan McKay please say a few remarks?
Mayor Sheehan, you could not have led off with a better set of comments. Thank you for those. On behalf of Governor Andrew Cuomo and Acting Commissioner Eric Kulisade of the Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation. I'm Daniel McKay. I have the great fortune of being Deputy Commissioner for Historic Preservation and overseeing the work of the State Historic Preservation Office. Welcome to Hudson Park, also known as the Hinckel Brewery Distribution Center, and welcome to the Center Square Hudson Park National Register District. We gather on the outer edge of two neighborhoods that were listed to the National Register in 1980, encompassing more than 1,100 historic structures, filling 27 city blocks, and containing a rich and representative variety of 19th and early 20th century buildings. In the furthest north corner of the district is the Alfred E. Smith Building. In this corner, where we celebrate today the former Hinckel Brewery. The many styles represented by the National Register District include Late Federal, Greek Revival, Gothic Revival, Richardsonian Romanesque, Queen Anne, Second Renaissance Revival, Dutch Revival, and Georgian Revival. The National Register nomination notes that for many of these styles, the district has both sophisticated architecture design buildings and more vernacular builder-constructed examples. There may be no more compactly varied architectural tour in the city of Albany than a stroll through these two neighborhoods. And if names, not architectural styles, whet your interest, longtime Mayor Erastus Corning II was born on Chestnut Street, and gangster Legs Diamond was murdered on Dove. Of equal distinction is that the Center Square Hudson Park National Register District marks the line drawn between Old Albany and the urban renewal investment of the Empire State Plaza, but we'll leave that history for another day. Frederick Hinckel started brewing in Albany in 1855, but this 5-building complex was built following his death in 1881. Beer production continued here until the early 1920s when curtailed by the Prohibition. The brewery was an early adapter of both mechanized refrigeration and electrification, and it is by far the largest piece of industrial architecture in the neighborhood. Nearly 100 years later, the brewery's redevelopment as Hudson Park marks further milestones, if not for brewing, then for the city of Albany and the capital region. This project represents the latest in $159 million of historic property redevelopment, preservation-centered redevelopment in the city of Albany. It is the 83rd project completed in the city to date to use federal tax credits, and the most recent activity has been joined by complementary state rehabilitation tax credits. 127 additional preservation projects are pending just in the city of Albany, projecting to another $160 million of historic property reinvestment and the resulting benefits to neighborhood revitalization, job creation, and tax-based growth. Mayor Sheehan, your city's current portfolio of 210 historic property redevelopments represents $320 million of reinvestment once completed, and that is a significant accomplishment for upstate New York. So thank you for your commitment to this. These achievements have largely been accomplished in the last 8 years since enhancement of the state rehabilitation tax credit program in the first year of Governor Cuomo's administration. Few mayors have the depth of knowledge that Mayor Sheehan has for the workings and economic impacts of historic preservation and historic tax credit use. Under her administration, the city has worked with our office to sponsor recent National Register nominations for Lincoln Park, right next door, Bleecker Stadium, and the Norman Skill Farm, qualifying all those properties for state and federal grant support. She has supported expansion of the Washington Park Local Historic District, and most recently undertaken the development of a new citywide master plan for historic resources, due to wrap up by year's end. To the mayor and Capitalize Albany, we thank you for your collaboration to advance smart growth and historic preservation opportunities in this city. The recently enacted state budget includes additional good news for the city of Albany. Now all state or national register listed homes, occupied homes, and I blew my remarks out of order. Basically all historic homes now in the city of Albany are eligible for the state homeowner rehabilitation tax credit. And while most of downtown was already qualified, this change enacted in the state budget agreement makes all of the city of Albany eligible and will induce, I believe, new survey work in the western parts of the city, Pine Hills and more, to qualify additional properties for homeowner investment. So I will conclude with that remark. We're excited about the future of Albany, a future that has been built, is rebuilding based on Albany's past. We are rebuilding and reinvesting in what is unique about this city, what makes us distinct from other cities in the region and other cities in the state. And we just appreciate the enduring commitment to capitalize these resources, to work with the development team, the ownership team here, our 3T architects. Well done. We're most impressed. And of course, our office is available whenever needed to assist in this type of work. So thank you.
Thank you so much. So I'm now happy to introduce Sarah Reginelli, the president of Capitalize Albany and the CEO of the City of Albany Industrial Development Agency. Sarah, thank you for being an advocate of the adaptive reuse of old buildings to enhance Albany. Would you please come up and say a few remarks?
Good morning, everybody. I am so excited to be standing here today in this gorgeous space, and you've already heard a lot about just how cool this building is and how much investment like it has been spurred in Albany. You've also heard a little bit about the neighborhood and how incredible this really walkable district is in the city of Albany. We're standing today really 3 minutes from everywhere you'd want to be in downtown. The Empire State Plaza is just over your shoulders. Washington Park is right around the corner. Albany Medical Center is just up the road. 3 minutes from your front door, you can be at all of the major employers in downtown Albany. So this building had so much going for it. That being said, it was a huge, huge challenge. I mean, it had oil in the title of the building. People don't take on projects like that lightly. So to Gilah and your whole team, thank you so much for seeing the vision that the mayors from around the country were jealous about and excited about here, and doing the hard work of putting this together. It definitely is hard work. It takes a building like this, a really elegant solution. So Scott at 3T Architects, thank you again for your vision on this. This is a beautiful project. It's a creative project. You've heard the word cool over and over again. But what I'm happy to hear is that I've also heard walking through the crowd today the word fun from everyone who has worked on it. And so for a challenging project like this to be fun, a $13 million investment in these great units in a challenging building, that also means that we're doing our jobs here. Mayor, thank you for your team, particularly at the planning department, for creating a zoning code that allows a creative use like this to happen. Richard Conti, who I saw out in the background working on behalf of your ward to make sure projects like this really find a warm welcome. And to my Industrial Development Agency board, Chair Tracy Metzger's here, Darius Shankhar's here as well. Thank you for helping with the support to make investments like this happen. We're looking forward to more, and I can't wait for move-in. Thanks.
We actually have some move-ins. We're very excited. We have 7 people already living in these apartments, so thank you. And our next speaker, Mark Egan from the Capital Region Chamber. Oh, right in front of me. Thank you so much. The Capital Region Chamber has always worked to enhance our cities and our whole community. So thank you, Mark, for taking the time to join us today.
My pleasure. Good morning, everybody. I heard a lot of references to it's a cool space. No one said cold yet. Welcome to springtime in the Northeast. You know, as our mayor was reminiscing, I remember when she came back from that meeting, and again, I remember her saying, I think I should go, and really how energized she was by possibilities. of what we could do. And again, to this building, there was such opportunity, but without investors, without developers, it wouldn't happen. And I think that those of us here who know Scott and his talented team, what they're able to do to blend historic and modern and really create spaces that are really unique. And then we know the history of Sunrise Management and what they do and the properties that they market and manage throughout our community. So it's really a great team that made it all come together. Really, the speakers before me touched on all the main elements. So really, on behalf of our board and our membership and our greater community, to all those folks, we want to extend our thanks, our congratulations, and our every best wish for long-term success. And we look forward to more unique projects that you can do like this in our community. Thank you.
So, as Mark touched upon, financing a project is so important. And we've really appreciated the partnership of Berkshire Bank, who has helped this go so smoothly. So, James J. Morris IV, would you please come up and join us and say a few remarks? Thank you.
Good morning. Just reminiscing with Dan Odebajan, it's been 3 years since we first met, when I met Gilah and Eric and Dan. And 3 years, sometimes it feels like it goes quickly, sometimes it feels like it takes a long time. Definitely a lot of twists and turns on this, and I would say early on we shared the vision that they had. It took us a little longer to muster the faith that they already had at that point. But we're thrilled to be part of the investment in the historical tax credits. Thanks locally to Julian and Daniel for your support and Parks and Rec in supporting that program that we've taken advantage of through New York State and Massachusetts. But this one is special to us. It's up the hill from our offices downtown Albany. We got to come up here quite often, either tour it or in the evening at least drive by and take a look. And I'd also like to acknowledge Greg Phillips, our friend at First National of Scotia. He partnered with us on the debt side for the deal, and good partnership, and I hope we'll do more together as well. So on behalf of Berkshire Bank, thank you very much. We're happy and proud to be part of this project.
So we know that these buildings have a lot of history. And before they were the Long Energy building, there were some historic breweries. When we were searching for an expert to speak about the history of these buildings, we came across Craig Ravina. He was actually leading a walking tour past these buildings before it was developed. So we got to hear him speak at the Albany Archives, and we were fascinated with the insights that he had. So Craig, would you please join me up here and tell us about the history of these buildings?
Good morning, everybody. I know it's cold, but we got 120 years of history to get through, so sit back. Nobody is colder than I am either. That's why I took my hat off. So I am calling this little talk The Tale of Two Breweries. Beaver pelts, politics, and beer really define the city of Albany. But before we get into the whole history, I got to get into a little semantic talk here, and it's the difference between ale and lager. Ale is an older brewing method. Lager is a little bit younger. Ale is warm fermented. Lager is cool fermented. Ale comes from a British and Belgian brewing tradition, and lager comes from a Central European tradition. And that's important because there are ale breweries and there are lager breweries in U.S. history, and sometimes they overlap. I want to let you know, too, I have notes here. This is how important. I usually wing this when I get up here and do this kind of stuff. So the situation in brewing in the upper Hudson Valley in the mid to late 19th century was very much, it was sort of an ale brewing center, and it was an exportation model. A lot of beer was made here and then sent all over the country and all over the world. In the second half of the 19th century, we get some German immigration coming into the United States, and clearly we get some coming into Albany too. And there's sort of a conflation between lager and German breweries. That holds true for most of the country, but Albany's a little bit unique. The largest lager brewery in the Upper Hudson Valley at the end of the 19th century was actually Beverwyck, and it was actually owned by an Irish guy who also happened to be mayor. I'm not saying anything. You don't have to buy one or anything. His name was Michael Nolan, and he owned. He specifically opened a lager brewery. He also had an ale brewery as well. There are two exceptions to. Oh, excuse me. We can go back to the German breweries in Albany. Really, for the majority of the late 19th century, were relatively small. They were making beer for neighborhoods and little German enclaves, and there were two exceptions to that rule, and they were the Hinckel Brewery and Dobler Brewery. So clearly we're in the Hinckel Brewery complex. Dobler Brewery was, and I'm not joking, literally across the street where the Executive View apartments are. That's how close these two breweries were. So let me give you a little background, a little history on both of these breweries. Frederick Hinckel and Johann Schinnerer opened in the early 1850s as the Cataract Brewery. They named it the Cataract Brewery because of Buttermilk Falls, right? I think I'm pointing in the right direction, back here. They used that as a dumping ground for their wastewater and that area. Hinckel buys out Schinnerer in 1864. Schinnerer goes off to Schenectady, opens a small brewery. The brewery began to see expansions in the late 1870s and into the 1890s, and was one of the first breweries, if not the first brewery in the city of Albany to employ artificial refrigeration. That's a big thing for lager breweries, right? You have to keep lager cold or it gets skunky. We've all had a Heineken and said, "Ooh, that tastes like a skunk." Refrigeration helps to combat that. By the 1880s, Cataract becomes Hinckel Brewery. It's producing about 35,000 barrels. And that's still fairly small compared to some of the other breweries in the area. Frederick Hinckel did not live to see this expansion that they were going through. He died in 1881. His sons Frederick Jr. and Charles took over operations. And they renamed the brewery Hinckel Brewery after their father, and themselves for that matter. By the late 1890s, Hinckel is the third largest producer of lager in Albany and had bottling contracts in New Hampshire and Massachusetts. In fact, there were a group of Boston brewers who got a little irritated at Hinckel for undercharging their beer in Boston. They were trying to take over that market, and a lot of the breweries in Albany said, no, they're not. You guys are doing great. And even though that they had this growth and this expanse, there was the brewery, the family had some financial issues. And in 1902, they consigned the brewery to Edward Murphy, who was the former mayor of Troy, again. And he was also a U.S. senator, but a family friend by the name of Fred Ullman purchased the brewery from him for $280,000 and put Charles Hinckel back in charge and put Frederick in charge of brewing operations. Charles died shortly thereafter. His brother was now in control of the brewery. He died in 1916. The family sold the brewery, and in 1922 it officially closed due to national prohibition. Enter Dobler. So Darius S. Wood, who was not Darius S. Shannonfar, totally different guy. He was an early Albany industrialist, a railroad guy. He opened a small brewery on the location across the street in 1865. John Dobler, a German immigrant, buys it in 1868. In 1891, that brewery was purchased from A.F. Dobler, who is John's son, by Theodore Amsdell and his son-in-law, George Hawley. Theodore Amsdell was 50% of the Amsdell Brothers Brewing Company, which was up on J Street. It's actually the Knickerbocker Apartments today. He and his brother decided that they were going to part ways. George was going to stick with ale, and Theodore was going to go into the lager business. Hawley's claim to fame, he was a fairly wealthy man, but he also bought the pedestal that the statue of Philip Schuyler sits on in front of City Hall today. So this idea of ale breweries buying lager breweries is this sort of repeating theme that we see from the late 19th century into the 20th century of consolidation. We'll see this all kind of happen again in the mid-1950s and early 1960s. We'll talk about that as well. Production by the turn of the century for Dobler is about 60,000 barrels, medium-sized for this area. They were bigger than Hinckel. Just before Prohibition, They are purchased by Feigenspan Brewery in Newark, New Jersey. And they closed the brewery in New Jersey because of Prohibition, but they keep Dobler open in Albany, making near beer. It reopens after Prohibition. It's one of 3 breweries that open. Beverwyck and Hedrick are the other 2. And after Prohibition, they actually see this facility over here and realize, hey, we're doing fairly well, we might as well expand into the old Hinckel Brewery. They used the building that's over there that says 1891 on it. That was part of their brewery, and they did a little bit of barrel storage and expansion into this area as well. They produced their own line of 1865 Triple X Amber, as well as Feigenspan's what was dubbed PON, which meant Pride of Newark, but when the Feigenspan family bought it, they changed it to the Pride of the Nation. In 1944, Feigenspan was purchased by Ballantine. Ballantine Ale was a major ale brewery out of Newark. But the Feigenspans kept control of Dobler and operated the brand until it was sold to Hamden Harvard Breweries in Massachusetts in 1959. This, again, is part of that mid-20th century consolidation. We see a lot of the breweries. Hedrick Brewery up on Central Avenue was actually purchased by that company as well. Unfortunately, they didn't keep the breweries. They only bought the brands. So you could see Dobler beer being made and Hedrick beer being made into the 1970s, but none of it was made in Albany. The brewery on the east side of Swan Street was raised in the mid-1960s to make the Executive View apartments during the construction of the Empire State Plaza. But there were still remnants of the old brewery, and that's what we have today. So there you go. That's the long and short of brewing, and it's kind of a cool story because it really does show how the brewing industry affected and how it sort of followed the national plan of what was happening in the rest of the world. So, thank you. I got through that. I got my head's okay.
Thank you, Craig. I think listening to you indoors is even better, but this is awesome. And afterwards, to warm you up a little bit, again, Sam will be offering some beer, so that'll help with this temperature. Okay, so our final speaker is Gilah Moses, and she's from the development team that made this exciting project happen, the Capital District Real Estate Investment Team. Thank you, Gilah, for your leadership and for bringing us all on board.
Thanks, Heather. I think beer before would have been a better idea, right? And thanks to all of you for coming today. Watching this project come to life has been an incredible experience. You said 3 years? I think we're over 4. When we first came across this site, it was being used for Long Energy. They had 40 propane trucks driving in and out of this building every day. We knew the location and character of this building could not be beat. You can feel the history here, and thank you, Greg, for giving us some of the details. So we racked our brains over how to construct this space, and we talked to many professionals, but it was the team at 3T who had the vision and the ability to stuff so much into so little and to do it with amazing style. Of course, BBL Construction Services, our top-notch builder, was wonderful to work with and completed the work in a timely fashion, which is huge. Our banking partners, because nothing happens without them, Berkshire Bank, First National of Scotia, you shared our vision and we appreciate that. A couple more thank yous. We appreciate the Albany IDA for its support, the New York State Historic Tax Credit Program in partnership with New York State Parks. Thank you to the Hudson Park neighborhood. We really feel like we've been welcomed here, and I think that we fit right into this area. It's an area that really lends itself to the live, work, play lifestyle that so many people desire. Just to mention some of the features of this development, luxury apartments include modern kitchens and bath, stainless steel appliances, quartz countertops, all of which complement the historic elements found just about everywhere, such as brick walls, wood ceilings, and steel beams. Many units have laundry, and for the ones that don't, there are several laundry rooms. We are standing in a courtyard with heated coils. I think we should turn them on. It's freezing. So the coils will help to melt the snow, and the residents will be able to use this courtyard year-round. There is plenty of parking on site and across the street for residents, and members of the public can also rent spaces. Behind me is a fitness center, a resident lounge for all the tenants to use. Across the way is a workspace that can be used for a small fee each month. Apartments rent between $900 and $1,500 a month and range from 300 to 938 square feet. I am thrilled to announce that since completing construction on March 1st, 34 of the 75 apartments are already spoken for. These are going fast. And like Heather said, 7 are already occupied. So when you do your tour, please don't peek into any of the units that aren't on the list. Sunrise is doing a fantastic job marketing and managing. And of course, PR extraordinaire Heather Schechter is really doing a great job. And now to the ribbon cutting. We'll stay after the ribbon cutting because we want to do this beer tasting with Sam Pagano. Thank you so much for coming from the Albany pump station. And also stop by the marketing tent to our table to enter the raffle and to take a tour. Would all of our partners please come up and help me cut the ribbon? One, two, three.
Congratulations.